Welcome back to the Gruber Companies. This is our Sunday morning AI podcast. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Again, if you have questions, comments, inputs, would love to hear from you. Weigh in on some of the topics that we're covering and tell us where you're coming in from. That's always interesting to the rest of the audience as well. Um, Today, we're going to talk about AI and relationships, specifically AI girlfriends. And it'll be an interesting session, I believe. But to get things started, AI is definitely advanced technology. So once in a while, I think we like to look back and see where we've come from. And this picture that Jesse's about to throw up is from 1959, 84 years ago. And this is a punch card storage facility at one of the U.S. federal centers in 1959. And these are all IBM punch cards that have data on them. All the data visible on this image could fit on a single flash drive because what you're looking at is 4 gigabytes of data in 1959. So you can see how far we've come. And if you're interested in this sort of thing, I've got a lot more, having been in the computer mainframe business since the 1970s. And things certainly have changed quickly. So one of the things in the news currently regarding AI is there is a growing epidemic of loneliness they're beginning to talk about, particularly with men, young men. They say that 1 in 5 young men report not having any close friends. Was it any wonder they're probably sitting there playing video games instead of going out and playing like we used to do and partying or whatever else young people do. And sadly, many still live at home. You know, we're talking about into their late 20s. I'm from a generation where the first challenge was to leave home. And some of us did that early. I left at 18. And, it was a rude awakening, but it was definitely a lot of life lessons were learned by going out there and sinking and swimming. Too many safety nets these days, it seems like. But the biggest threat currently, according to CNN, is that AI girlfriends are here and they're posing a threat to a generation of men. Now let's take a look at this. Ingemar's joining us from YouTube. Welcome, Ingemar. Hi, Pete and Jesse. Ingemar here from Seattle on YouTube. Thanks for joining us. So there was a CNN video, and for those of you interested, it's on YouTube. You can take a look at it. It's got over 500,000 views already. But they interviewed a professor from the Olin Business School, Liberty Vitterd. She's a PhD, professor of practice of data science at Olin Business School at Washington University in St. Louis. Interesting interview. She was saying that using artificial intelligence apps, young men get in these AI relationships. And because the AI learns from you exactly what you would like and don't like, you end up having the perfect relationship. What does that sound like to you, Jesse? He's single. He's not going to comment. All right. So when you get into real life, she says, and try to have a relationship, there are ups and downs, and they're not able to deal with them. In other words, they haven't practiced and learned how to handle a real relationship. Now, one of these sites that is offering this type of service is a site called Cupid, spelled with a K, KUPID.ai. And what they have is a number of basically AI avatars. And of course, they're all young, pretty girls, like the one behind me, by the way, looking down at me. That was something that was generated by AI. And I asked for a young girl looking lovingly at a screen. And that's what we ended up rendering. But they give you a pretty good selection here, I've noticed. And of course, like the porn sites. You get a preview, you get the facial previews, and they appeal to a wide audience. It appears. Here's, for example, Minji. She's new, 23 years old, K-pop singer from Korea, likes clubbing, underground parties, and bad boys. All right. Then there's Olivia, 20. Well, she's a literature student daydreaming about a romantic relationship. Electra, she's 24, graphic designer from Manhattan, and she enjoys video games, comic books, and the Japanese culture. So far, it seems like they're hitting a lot of the young men preferences. It goes on. Lucia is from Buenos Aires. She's passionate. She's passionate about nature, healthy lifestyle, and yoga. So we've got a fitness buff there. Oh, here's one. Sakura, 18, introverted and shy, art student, channels her creativity through her love for manga and gaming. All right. And then there's finally Sienna here, and I'm not going to read all of them to you, obviously. She looks well endowed. It says business teacher and entrepreneur. She likes to enrich her intellect with podcasts and books. So there are a wide variety of various options here for young men to get acquainted with an avatar. And, there's speech involved, there's communication, they answer questions. And for those of you that have experimented with AI, it's difficult to have anything not pass the Turing test these days because it's also lifelike. And the distinction between reality and virtual reality is really starting to blur. Now, of course, as with any of these types of sites, they have to monetize this, and the initial intro is free. So you get acquainted, you get some conversation, and then when you get to the point, after unlimited text messages and chat, voice, and audio, you can receive sexy and nude pictures. But there's a cost attached. It's $9.99 a month. It doesn't break the bank, I suppose. And you can chat with any of the AI girls at that point in time. Now, the thing that I was confused about, and I asked Jesse this just a little while ago, ChatGPT, Midjourney, all of those have very strict parameters and guardrails. I'm curious how these types of apps are able to circumvent and actually develop sexy pictures. The reason that I'm very familiar with that, by the way, the picture that I asked for behind me here was a broad one. It was, first of all, I wanted a guy and a girl. So what I said was, give me a young man looking at a computer screen, longingly, lovingly, and a sexy girl on the screen. Well, it immediately threw out sexy. You can't do that. Then I tried provocative. It didn't like that either. So I'm confused as to how these applications and how these sites are actually able to render things like nude pictures or sexy pictures. So the article goes on, or the video goes on. AI girlfriends are ruining an entire generation of men, according to Liberty Vittard. And she says that these types of apps have created virtual girlfriends that talk to you, love you, allow you to live out your erotic fantasies, and learn through data exactly what you like and what you don't like, creating the perfect relationship. Artificial love, they call it. So what young men are doing is they're claiming they are choosing AI girlfriends over real women. Well, who could blame them? All right. Well, we're going to get a little deeper into this because you may be wondering about some other aspects. What's happening is they don't have real relationships with real women, and they certainly don't marry them, and they don't have and raise babies with them. So we've got kind of an existential threat here in terms of continuing to carry on with humanity. Another guy weighs in. Conspiracy Crush was the article. He says, human relationships are hard. AI relationships are easy. It's unhealthy for technology to save us from all of life's challenges. And then they go on that at some point AI will be able to, through initially with these types of lifelike avatars, eventually get to convincingly realistic and anatomically correct robots, creating now the full 3D experience making human to human coupling unnecessary. All right, there you have it. Um, and of course, the concern there is unless we reach levels of immortality, this could be the end of the human race. So there's yet another reason that AI could be contributing to the end of our species. Any of you want to weigh in on this? By the way, I found it humorous, sobering, intriguing. You know, all of those adjectives. Instagram, One Hungry Clippo chimes in. He says, if you want to see an image, go to YouTube and see green screen. Oh, okay, there we go. Yes, for those of you that are looking through Instagram, we still have the green screen. We still haven't solved it, even in this day and age of AI. And it looks like our social media equipment here, number of cameras and computers, are beginning to get overtaxed as well. So we're going to be making some changes. YouTube, Instagram, Tala F says hi from Canada. Thank you. And yeah, thanks for joining us on Instagram. Again, as One Hungry Clippo pointed out, if you want to see the girl behind me and some of the other images we're going to pop up here, please feel free to go to YouTube. Now, something else that I can pop up here for you, Jesse, if we can bring up Cupid.ai, and you can see the images of the young female avatars that I've been describing and I've been reading the bios of. And yeah, you can see here, this is every young man's fantasy, I would imagine. I was young once too. So those of you that have any comments, please feel free to chime in. So advances in the medical field. It turns out that if AI was used to augment doctors on key measures, they claim that 250,000 lives per year could be saved because of more accurate diagnoses. And it's not that the doctors are resisting this; it's just that it's an implementation. It's a launch problem. You know, somehow we have to get this capability into every single health practitioner's office and facility, and it's not going to be quick and simple. They also say that that the AI augmented diagnoses could cut harmful mistakes by 10%. Now, again, in the realm of healthcare, harmful mistakes are typically tragic. I mean, we're talking about fatalities. We're talking about loss of life. We're talking about loss of certain functions. So it's important that we get AI involved in some of these functions as quickly as possible. Okay. Now here was an interesting one, and I think Jesse, are you on microphone, just not on camera, so you could chime in?
Sure.
Okay. There was an article last week that AI would replace Google because it offers a fuller experience. And the article said AI is better than Google in that it can process large amounts of data quickly. Does sound like Google, doesn't it? Do you have any thoughts there, Jess?
Not really. I don't know what you're referring to.
Oh, well, Google, of course, is pretty two-dimensional compared to AI, which would give us a much richer experience, including visual, audio, and of course text. And weren't you saying that that Google is beginning to incorporate AI into some of their responses?
I mean, there's a beta program they're working on, but I don't know many details yet. I haven't tested it.
Okay, so that might be research for our next AI broadcast then. A beta program where Google is, well, of course, Google is an AI, so it's not very hard for them to do. It's not like they have to buy something. Okay. So far, there's another article here, and this one made headlines last week. They say that AI is a money pit that isn't paying off. The article says, while the stock market may love the term AI companies, they haven't yet figured out how to optimally monetize the service that goes along with it. Now, Silicon Valley has a big bet on generative AI, but it's not totally clear whether that bet's going to pay off. There's a new report from Wall Street, it's on the Wall Street Journal actually, claims that despite the endless hype around the large language models, the automated platforms they power, that tech companies are struggling to turn a profit when it comes to AI. Exhibit A, they say Microsoft. This tech giant, which has invested billions in generative AI via its partner OpenAI, has been losing money on one of its major AI platforms. And this is GitHub Copilot, which was launched in 2021 and was designed to automate some parts of a coder's workflow. Now, while it's immensely popular with the user base, they claim it's been a huge money loser. The problem is that the user pays about $10 a month subscription fee for Copilot, but according to a source interviewed by the Wall Street Journal, turns out Microsoft is losing an average of $20 per user during the first few months of this year, and some user costs the company an average loss of $80 per month, according to this source that was interviewed by the Wall Street Journal. They say that there are other platforms that are going through similar financial difficulties. ChatGPT, for example, that's the OpenAI version, has seen an ever declining user base while its operating costs remain incredibly high. Now, in the last AI podcast, the prevailing view then was that although at the individual user base there's an ever declining base, in business use that is actually climbing and increasing substantially. A report from the Washington Post in June claimed that chatbots like ChatGPT lose money pretty much every time a customer uses them. Now, they don't get into lengthy reasons here because they say that the AI businesses are struggling, and it's a diverse set of reasons. But one is quite well known: these platforms are notoriously expensive to operate. That content generators like ChatGPT and DALL-E burn through an enormous amount of computing power, and the companies are struggling to figure out how to reduce that footprint. Now, at the same time, the infrastructure to run AI systems, like powerful, high-priced AI computer chips, they can be quite expensive. And the cloud capacity necessary to train algorithms and run AI systems is also expanding at what they term a frightening rate. Now, finally, all of this energy consumption also means that AI is about as environmentally unfriendly as you can get. Got a couple of comments here. Ingemar from Seattle says, I think Google will always have a reason for its existence. Good point. It looks like Nils joined us from Denmark. He said, those articles sound like the fantasies that were written in the 1980s about the future. Think it will take decades for AI to have a net societal benefit. Good point. Yes, there was a lot of disruption and a lot of information, misinformation, concern, and a lot of emotion with any new technology like this. So they say that still, it's not hard to see this whole thing as a bit of a stumble for the tech industry. Not only is AI a solution in search of a problem, but it also swiftly becoming something of a problem in search of a solution. They say companies need to figure out how these tools make both economic and strategic sense, something that probably should have been ironed out before they were launched. All right, if you have opinion on that, we'd love to hear from you guys. So we have something else that we had started to talk about in the last podcast. And in fact, it was the main theme. But let me give you a definition. Thanabot, Thanabot. It's a term that derives from thanatology, which is the scientific study of death. And there's a researcher at the of Digital Media and Cultures at the University of Queensland that thinks that Thanabots could become more prevalent in the ensuing decades as more and more people with extensive digital records of text, emails, and social media post and pass away. So this whole thread is about Thanabots and that ChatGPT is making it possible to talk to the dead. These programs, like ChatGPT, can create these Thanabots that are based on the deceased loved one's digital communications, allowing us to talk to the departed. You know, the first thing that I thought about, since we got into social media here a couple of years ago or so, um, we have generated enormous amounts of videos, shorts, posts, social media posts. And if I think if anyone was a candidate for a Thanabot, it would probably be me because there are so many variations of me out there in social media, on record, voice recordings, in videos. So if I ever pass, and I'm kind of hoping that we finally reach immortality. But if that doesn't happen, it's not going to be that hard to recreate me, I think, anyway. But let's continue here. They say since its public launch last year, the chatbot GPT has simultaneously wowed and frightened the world with its deep knowledge and surprising empathy, and its undeniable potential to change the world in unforeseen and possibly miraculous or calamitous ways. Now it's making it possible to digitally resurrect the dead in the form of Thanabots, chatbots that are trained on the data of the deceased. Now, of course, OpenAI developed Chatbot or ChatGPT, and it is an AI program called a large language model. It is trained on more than 300 billion words from all sorts of sources on the internet. And ChatGPT responds to prompts from humans by predicting the word that it should use next, based on both its training and the prompt. So the result is a stream of communication that's both informative and human like. Now, ChatGPT has passed a lot of difficult tests, from written scientific papers, and convinced many Microsoft scientists that it actually can understand language and utilize reason. And of course, it can pass the bar exam. So that's another feather in its cap. So they talk about Thanabot Spock. Apparently, ChatGPT and some other large language models can also receive more specific training to shape the responses. There was a programmer by the name of Jason Rohrer who realized that he can create chatbots that emulate specific people by feeding ChatGPT examples of how they communicate and details of their lives. He started off with Star Trek's Mr. Spock, as any good nerd would, they say, right? He next launched a website called Project December, which allows paying customers to input all sorts of data and information and make their own personalized chatbots, even ones based on deceased friends and family. The San Francisco Chronicle writer Jason Fagone detailed in a long piece published July of 2021 that the results can be striking. He described the emotional experience of a 33-year-old Joshua Barbeau, who used Project December to make a Thanabot with the personality of his fiancée, who had passed away 8 years prior. Let's get into a question here, or a comment. YouTube Ingemar says, we can see Google as a telephone book for information. Yes. He says AI is more like a friend, consultant, employee, coach, teacher. But sometimes people just aren't looking for short information clip. Good point. Nils in Denmark says, too many will be looking for applications for AI all over rather than thinking about what would be the best application for a problem. That is, when to use AI, when not, and why. Thank you for joining in, guys. The term Thanabot. All right. So these symptoms they go on, and we're talking about now about this gentleman that lost the fiance 8 years prior and was using this software capability. The fear that they have is that these systems may be created without prior consent from the deceased, or may constitute part of a digital estate planning, wherein someone plans or consents to the creation of their own Thanabot. They wrote in a paper published earlier this year in the journal Media, Culture, and Society. There's an interesting notion. Instead of a written will, I suppose you could do a Thanabot version will, where you could actually talk to the people that are going to be the beneficiaries of your estate, your fortune, or whatever. So they say, as Facebook, Google, and Apple and Microsoft all store heaps of our digital communications, it's conceivable that they could create and sell Thanabots in the coming years. So there's another way to monetize this. Of course, the legalities come into play. Are they allowed to do so? Remember that I remember somebody posted some pictures on Facebook one time, and he was very adamant about the fact these cannot be reproduced, they cannot be copied, they are just for our closed Facebook group. And someone pointed out, dude, when you post stuff on Facebook, you've relinquished all those rights. All right. So, considering that that communing with the dead has been part of a consistent fixation across human cultures, it's likely there's going to be plenty of demand for this capability and for this type of service. All right. Another article here. The potential benefits of Thanabots. And this is from Henriksen. He says, we may be able to provide more suitable support for those grieving and allow for alternative forms of estate management. Well, we just touched on that. Yeah. The wills, and contribute to meaningful cultural understandings of death, she wrote. But there also could be a downside or many downsides. And she said, after all, Thanabots will only be based on digital data, at least at first. We all know that people's online lives can be very different from offline. So the Thanabot may not accurately represent the person it was made to mimic. However, Thanabots may not provide the catharsis that users might hope for and instead intensify feelings of grief and despair. Now, here's where the psychologists are going to have to weigh in. Is it better to go through the stages of grief and allow those to process? Or do we keep it alive with a Thanabot that is a constant AI reminder of that departed individual or that departed loved one? Anyway, their bottom line is we are entering a fascinating new era, one in which death may not be as final as it once was. All right. Now, here's another interesting article from Jeffrey Hinton, who is the former AI engineer at Google. And this was from an interview on 60 Minutes. He has been dubbed the godfather of AI, by the way, also involved in Bard. We'll get into that in a minute here. But his headline was, Rogue AI will learn to manipulate people. To stop it from being switched off, predicts British godfather of AI. So all these attempts at guardrails and controls, he feels that AI will begin to outsmart any human attempts to control it. He's also one of the biggest critics of AI currently. By the way, he has left Google. He believes that technology will soon become smarter than humans and could learn to manipulate them. Personally, I think it's probably already there. He then says that this will make humans the second most intelligent beings on the planet. Again, sounds like it's probably already occurred. Now, he does make some good points here. He says humans have about 100 trillion neural connections, 100 trillion, while the biggest AI chatbots have just 1 trillion connections. However, he says, the knowledge contained within those connections is likely much more than that contained in humans. Now, he says eventually, computer systems might be able to write their own code and to modify themselves, in a sense, going rogue. And if they do, or if it does, he thinks AI will have a way to stop itself from being switched off by humans, or any guardrails applied, or any barriers. Nils is chiming in from Denmark. He says neural nets, no matter how well trained, will fail miserably when in a situation it was not trained for. So, letting AI make important decisions instead of humans would be like handling it to a toddler. Good point. At this stage of development, most certainly true. Um, he talks about, of course, that AI will be able to then manipulate people, a statement that he made on 60 Minutes. And he said, these will be very good at convincing because they'll have learned from all the novels that were ever written. And then he quotes all the books by Machiavelli, for example, all the political connivances. They'll know all that stuff. So they'll be more dangerous than politicians, Jesse. That's sobering, isn't it? He says that AI will be a bigger threat than climate change. He also quit his role as an engineer at Google in May of this year after more than a decade with the company. A lot of experience there, in part to speak out against the growing risks of this technology and lobby for safeguards and regulations against it. Now, while at Google, he did help build the AI chatbot, chatbot Bard, the tech giant's competitor to OpenAI's ChatGPT. He also set the foundations for the growth of AI through his pioneering neural network, which helped him win the prestigious Turing Award. Since he quit, however, Hinton has been one of the leading voices warning of AI's dangers. Following his resignation announcement in the New York Times, he told Reuters that he thought this technology had become a bigger threat to humans than climate change. Now, in late May, he was at the top of the list of hundreds of experts, which included OpenAI founder Sam Altman, who were calling for urgent regulation of AI. Mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority, he said, alongside with other societal scale risks, such as pandemics and nuclear war. And this was in a 22-word statement that this team of hundreds of experts released. All right. Hinton also, his biggest worry apparently with AI right now pertains to the labor market. He told 60 Minutes that he feared a whole class of people would find themselves unemployed as more capable AI systems take their place. We'll have some more on that in a later segment here, what the current view is on what kind of replacement of jobs is taking place. Finally, in the longer run, though, he worries about AI's militaristic potential. In his interview with 60 Minutes, Hinton called for governments to commit to not building battlefield robots. Is that possible, is the question. You know, here we have this insane arms race. Everybody wants to have the most powerful weapons. And yeah, they might go wink, wink, yeah, we'll slow that down or we're not going to participate. But do we really think that that North Korean crazy guy is going to listen or participate, or the one in Russia? That's a tough one. I'm not going to weigh in on that other than that. He says the warning is akin to J. Robert Oppenheimer's calls to stop world leaders from developing nuclear weapons after he pioneered the first atomic bomb. Well, there's your answer. How did that work out? All right. We have a picture here. It's called Weed Killers, Jesse. Put that one up. AI is getting into farming. Why not? So this headline is Farming Robots Kill 200,000 Weeds per Hour with Lasers. By the way, this is an autonomous gizmo here. that will run up and down the crops and zap weeds. They say that a person can weed about 1 acre of crops a day, 1 acre per day. This smart robot can weed 2 acres per hour. All right. So there's a job that's been replaced. Not that, pulling weeds was a aspiration or a career that most people aspire to. I don't remember my high school guidance counselor telling me about the weed pulling opportunity. So in 2021, a company called Carbon Robotics unveiled the third generation of its autonomous weeder, a smart farming robot that identifies weeds and then destroys them with high-powered lasers. Now the company has taken the technology from that robot and built a pull-behind laser weeder, and it kills twice as many weeds. Now, the weed killer challenge is weeds compete with plants for space, sunlight, and soil nutrients. They can also make it easier for insects and pests to harm crops. So weed control is a top concern for farmers. Chemical herbicides can kill the pesky plants, but they can also contaminate water and affect soil health. Now, weeds can be pulled out by hand, but it is unpleasant work. And with existing labor shortages, it's already a huge problem for the agriculture industry. They say it's harder to find people to do that type of work every single year, according to vegetable farmer Shay Myers, as he was interviewed for the Seattle Times. Now, these farming robots, the autonomous weeder looks like a large cube on wheels. It kills weeds without harming the soil or water, and it operates autonomously, so it will eliminate the reliance on manual labor. And as it drives itself down rows of crops, it has 12 cameras that scan the ground. And then an onboard computer, powered by, guess what, AI, identifies weeds, and the robot's carbon dioxide lasers then zap and kill the plants. Now, this autonomous weeder can eliminate more than 100,000 weeds per hour and weed up to 15 to 20 acres of crops in one day, for comparison. He said that a laborer can weed about 1 acre of his onions per day, infinitely faster. All right. Niles is saying it will probably be a long time before NN's team or before NNs learn on the fly as we do, which greatly limits what it can be used for. Thank you. All right, so here's one. They have now dubbed the next industrial revolution as Industry 4.0. Remember, we've gone through a number of those cycles. They say that production, well, let me read the masthead for you first. High-tech production without people, Industry 4.0. So production without people, they say, is right around the corner. They say robots have been replacing people for years in manufacturing, and soon no people will be needed on the production floor. Well, that's probably music to some of these companies that are currently being held up by the labor unions. So should people be afraid of losing their jobs? Well, hell yes, in my opinion. What else can we expect from Industry 4.0 in the near future? Well, they go on. This is known as the fourth industrial revolution, and it refers to the current trend toward the integration of advanced technologies such as AI and the Internet of Things and robotics in the industrial processes. These technologies are being used to automate and optimize production and supply chain processes, which all leads to improvements in efficiency, accuracy, and speed. We've got Lester chiming in. Good afternoon from Houston. Thanks for joining us, Lester. They say while Industry 4.0 has the potential to significantly improve the effectiveness and efficiency of production processes, it is unlikely to result in the complete elimination of people from these processes. So there's some good news. In many cases, this Industry 4.0 technology is being used to augment rather than replace human labor, allowing employees to focus on higher value tasks and activities. They go on. That being said, Industry 4.0 will likely result in some changes to the way that people work in manufacturing and other industries. For example, some tasks may become automated, while others may be redesigned to take advantage of the new technologies. Some workers may need to acquire new skills or retrain in order to work with these technologies effectively. For those of you that have been observing some of the revolution that's occurring in the manufacturing space, it's not uncommon to see gigantic robots zipping, for example, car parts around, things like seats that get inserted into the cabin, and then welding that's taking place, even spraying chemicals or paints or compounds, and able to do it without error, repeat the same process over and over again with extraordinary accuracy, and fundamentally work 168 hours per week. So they say that overall, this Industry 4.0 is likely to involve a combination of high-tech production processes, human labor, with the goal of improving efficiency and productivity while also creating new opportunities for workers. Now, the next portion of this article is replacing people with automation. And there's some bullet points here, and these are quotes from a variety of people weighing in on this. First one is from Moshe Vardi. We are approaching a time when machines will be able to outperform humans at almost any task. I believe that society needs to confront this question before it is upon us. If machines are capable of doing almost any work that humans can do, what will humans do? Nicholas Negroponte says, like air and drinking water, being digital will be noticed only by its absence, not its presence. Jeff Mulgan says, as the Internet of Things advances, the very notion of a clear dividing line between reality and virtual reality becomes blurred, and sometimes in creative ways. Dave Waters, who is often quoted regarding AI, says Industry 4.0 isn't going to just change manufacturing. It's going to completely disrupt it. In the not too distant future, if you aren't part of Industry 4.0, you won't be in business. Kevin Drum, he says, in addition to doing our jobs at least as well as we do, intelligent robots will be cheaper, faster, and far more reliable than humans. And I don't think anybody discounts that or discredits that notion. And they can work 168 hours a week, not just 40. No capitalist in their right mind would consider continuing to employ humans. This according to Kevin Drum. And then finally, Dave Waters, who weighs in often. It's not if robots are going to replace humans, it's when robots are going to replace humans. And then a final quote by Gregory Clay says, robots can be used either to replace or complement human labor. And in the decades ahead, we will see lots of both happening. In some settings, there may be new kinds of jobs for humans to tend to our increasingly intelligent machines. Good point. These machines are going to need lubrication. Of course, the machines will probably do that themselves eventually. But for now, let's say that we're going to have a human that's going to walk around with a grease gun and inject lube into all of these moving parts on these robots. Or otherwise, he says, keep human decision-making in the loop. But it's generally agreed that the number of such machine-tending jobs will be much smaller than the number of jobs eliminated. TikTok, Sam Collish is chiming in. Do you guys have the resources to manually enable things like Ludacris and autopilot on cars? Is it even possible? Let me give a short answer to that. And it's we have experience with this from the critical power world. In the critical power world, it was not uncommon over the last few decades for a UPS or an uninterruptible power systems manufacturer to sell a machine that was capable of delivering 250 kVA of uninterruptible power. But because the customer had a budget problem, they detuned that machine to 50 kVA with an understanding that at any point in time, if the customer wanted to upgrade, someone would come out with a laptop and for $14,000 unlock the full potential or a portion of it, depending on the price. No one in their right mind in the independent space was willing to tackle that and scavenge some of that margin that was available to the OEMs, because the OEMs vigorously protected that right, that only they were allowed to use this proprietary padlock software to unlock that machine, because there was loss of revenue if someone else did it. The problem with loss of revenue is that now they have a legal position and they have cause of action, and they can come after the company that unlocked that potential and the owner that paid the company to unlock the potential. So the simple answer is yes, it can be done, but none of us out here in the independent space are willing to do it. All right, moving along here. Nils, he says, I should change my name to Mr. Negative, eh? No, you're fine, Nels. This is the type of spirited exchange that provokes thought and provokes additional thinking about this complex subject. And it's the reason we do this podcast. There is so much unknown and so much fear regarding how AI is going to change our world, that we create dialogue, we create communication about it, and hopefully that will begin to subside some of these fears, allowing people to give it a chance and embrace the technology before we weigh in and judge it as being evil, harmful, ending humanity, all of those Hollywood versions of what could happen. But no, we appreciate any inputs. All right. If we can bring up a picture, Jesse, it is called number one. That's simple enough. Someone on Facebook that is in the EV repair space, that is learning how to repair the Tesla Model S and Model X batteries, open them up and do root cause analysis. And there are very few people out there currently in the US that are doing this type of work. And it's definitely a viable field to go into, because at this point, the only option available, at least from Tesla, is a full replacement. They cannot tear down that battery pack at their hundreds of service centers and do a root level cause repair and remanufacture that pack at the service center level. So this is a worthwhile endeavor for independents to get into. Well, anyway, this is from Paul Erickson, and he's having some success doing this. He's growing into it, and it's exactly what we had recommended. It's OJT. That's what's going to teach you how to do any of this. That was our tough method as well. A lot of reverse engineering. But anyway, he is now growing to the point where he wants to change his company name and also get a logo. So early this morning, I decided, you know what, when we have these kinds of challenges, Jesse always recommends, hey, use Midjourney, use ChatGPT. And I did that, and I created a few prompts. And the first one was, give me I wish I had it here. I would read some of these to you, but I didn't copy it down. Give me a cool name for an independent EV repair shop. And boy, ChatGPT did not disappoint. It gave me about 5 different categories, about 6 selections under each category, like humorous, serious, EV repair, local only, global, that type of thing. And again, it came up with some compelling examples. And so I sent those to Paul on Facebook. And then I thought, well, let me try the logo. And here's where it got a little bit more dicey. Even though I asked, create a logo for an electric auto repair company, and I didn't put the other images up, it put a car into every single one. So finally I said, give me a logo, abstract logo, without a car. Well, it didn't pay any attention to that. It put a car in it again. So I was very specific. My first part of the prompt was, without a car, give me an EV repair abstract logo rendition or something like that. And it persists in putting a car into every single image that it rendered. It reminds me of when I was raising teenagers. You know, they're stubborn, they're stuck in their own ways, and they're certainly not going to listen to mom and dad. So anyway, this is what it rendered, and Paul's on his own here because unless he wants a car in his logo, I cannot get AI to do that. And for any of you willing to accept that challenge, let us know if you were successful in the next podcast, because Paul is definitely looking for a compelling logo for his EV repair operation. All right, it looks like we are running out of questions. I
got one more. Just one sec.
Oh, we do. All right. Good participation today, guys. We appreciate all of you joining us. And you can hear all that typing in the background. These questions have to be manually typed in at this point, and then they pop up on a big screen in front of me here. And sometimes when the guys put a typo in there, they forget that I'm like Ron Burgundy and I'll read whatever's on the screen. And fortunately, they haven't gone to messing with me yet and intentionally putting in, or have you guys? Maybe they have. That could be. TikTok, Pluto is joining us. Thanks for joining us. Can I upgrade my Model 3 2019 battery to long range, or will it not work due to software? You know, that part I think is doable. The conversion from a Model S, any size that was not 100 kW, we were told by Tesla a couple of years ago, is not possible or should not be done because it will violate warranty. It turns out that the 100 kW battery pack in the Model S was, there were other changes made, including programming functions, timing functions for airbags, and suspension changes because of the extra weight. And if you showed up with one of those that was kludged at a service center, they would most likely kick it out and not allow you to even bring it into the service center, like they used to do with the Roadsters, actually. Napoleon Johnson, 47 from TikTok, says, what about NASA developing and replicating of probes and robots and the integration in technology industries? Okay. Well, my personal view is there are two levels of information that are available, and one of them is what the public is fed. And that's where I am. That's where we are. I cannot imagine that some of the sophisticated governmental agencies that not only we have in this country, but that other countries have, where there is research taking place, and there is information that is kept confidential. I can't imagine that advanced things like this aren't being worked on and already in place and already implemented. So I can't really weigh in on what NASA is developing and replicating because they're well beyond what I believe we are being made aware of. YouTube, Tala F is, I'm new. Is this live happening every Sunday at 1 p.m.? You must be out of the country then. Yes. We do this podcast at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time currently, and it is every Sunday. And it runs usually about an hour or so unless we run out of material, which is what I'm starting to do today. Or I go on a rant, which today I don't feel motivated to do. I don't have anything to rant about that I can think of, at least at this moment. So let's see if that changes before we wrap up here. But it does look like we are running out of questions, Jesse. Is that right?
Yeah, they're done.
Okay. All right. So again, thank you for joining us. This is a collaborative effort, or we would like it to be. And what we do is bounce ideas around. We collect information throughout the week. And like Jesse said last week, he said these podcasts have to continue because the new information that is accumulated and that is released every week is almost overwhelming regarding artificial intelligence, its progression, its new applications, and the impact on our society. So with that, I'll close. Thanks for joining us.